This story is written and narrated to honor the brilliance, perseverance, and genius of Otis Boykin, an African-American inventor whose quiet determination reshaped the rhythm of human life itself. Based on true historical accounts and inspired by the spirit of innovation during America's mid-20th century technological boom, this story follows the journey of a man who refused to let adversity define his future. A man whose mind would one day give humanity a device that literally keeps hearts beating. In a world where progress seemed reserved for the privileged few, where the color of your skin could decide your opportunities before your talent ever had a chance to shine, a young boy named Otis Boykin dared to dream beyond every limit. Born in Dallas, Texas in 1920, Otis grew up in an America defined by segregation but also bursting with possibility. His father, a humble carpenter turned preacher, taught him that hands could build and faith could guide. But the spark that lit Otis's destiny came not from the pulpit, but from tragedy, when his mother died of heart failure while he was still a boy. That single loss would stay with him forever, buried deep in the chambers of his heart, whispering the same question over and over again. What if I could stop it from happening again? From that moment, every wire, every resistor, every invention he touched would become his silent promise to the woman who gave him life. As he grew older, his brilliance began to glow through the cracks of a world determined to dim it. After excelling in high school, Otis earned a scholarship to Fisk University, where he majored in physics. Surrounded by minds hungry for knowledge, he found his rhythm in the hum of electricity, the pulse of circuits, the invisible language of current. But soon, the weight of the real world pressed in. After graduation, he worked at the Majestic Radio and Television Corporation in Chicago, a job that paid the bills but couldn't contain his imagination. He wanted to build, to innovate, to change lives. But the doors to research laboratories and high-end technical positions were often slammed in his face because of the color of his skin. Still, he refused to give up. Otis Boykin was not a man who accepted no as an answer. He was a man who built his own yes. He began working on his own inventions in his spare time, setting up a small laboratory, sometimes nothing more than a wooden workbench, wires, and sheer willpower. He experimented with resistors, small, unassuming devices that control the flow of electrical current. They were the heartbeat of every circuit, the silent guardians of balance in a world powered by electricity. But the resistors used at that time were expensive and unreliable, prone to breaking down under stress. Otis saw the flaw, and in that flaw he saw opportunity. Through long nights of trial and error, sparks flying, the smell of hot metal in the air, he developed a precision wire resistor that was not only cheaper to produce but far more reliable than any before it. It could withstand extreme temperatures, pressures, and electrical surges, a tiny invention that carried enormous potential. His resistor caught the attention of the U.S. military, the IBM Corporation, and countless engineers across America. Suddenly, Otis was no longer an overlooked dreamer. He was a pioneer. His resistors found their way into guided missiles, IBM computers, and a range of electronic devices that defined the era. Yet while others saw profit, Otis saw purpose. He knew these same circuits could do more than guide machines. They could sustain life. The idea of a device that could regulate the human heartbeat fascinated him, not just as an engineer, but as the son who had once lost his mother to a failed heart. By the late 1950s, his expertise led him to develop what would become his most celebrated invention, the control unit for the artificial heart pacemaker. At the time, pacemakers existed but were unreliable, often malfunctioning because of inconsistent electrical flow. Otis applied his unique resistor design to create a control unit that stabilized the current, ensuring that the pacemaker could maintain a steady rhythm. a rhythm of life itself. It was elegant, practical, and revolutionary. With his invention, doctors could now trust that a small device implanted in a patient's chest could take over the most vital function of the body, keeping the heart beating when it could not do so alone. But Boykin's genius wasn't fueled by fame or wealth. It was driven by compassion. Each design, each prototype, each improvement was a tribute to every life he could save, every heart he could keep beating a little longer. His device soon became a cornerstone of modern medicine, saving millions of lives across the world. The Pacemaker's Control Unit, the unsung hero inside the hero, became one of humanity's most significant inventions in medical technology. Still, the path was far from easy. Financial struggles, systemic barriers, and skepticism shadowed him at every turn. Even as his designs powered missiles, computers, and hearts, the name Otis Boykin was often left off the marquee. Yet, true to his quiet nature, he continued to work, undeterred. "Innovation," he once said, "is born not of comfort, but of challenge." Those words became his creed. Throughout his life, Boykin obtained over 26 patents, from resistors to burglar-proof cash registers, chemical air filters, and control units that found their way into everything from radios to missiles. Each invention told a story of a man who refused to be limited by the times he lived in. His work rippled across industries, shaping the future of electronics and inspiring a generation of Black inventors who saw in him proof that brilliance had no color. But perhaps the most beautiful irony was this: the very invention that stabilized the human heart, the Pacemaker Control Unit, was a device he had created to conquer the very disease that had once taken his mother's life. It was as if life had come full circle, and through his work, she lived on in every heartbeat his invention sustained. That poetic symmetry, of loss transformed into legacy, made Boykin's story not just one of science but of soul. As the years passed, his name remained known only in small scientific circles, buried beneath the headlines of others who benefited from his ideas. Recognition came slowly, almost reluctantly. But history, though late, never forgets true brilliance. Today, when millions of people live normal lives because of pacemakers, few realize that the heartbeat of that miracle came from the mind of Otis Boykin. Every time a heart beats to a rhythm sustained by technology, his spirit hums in the pulse of life. He continued to invent until his final years, never losing his curiosity or drive. Even after facing discrimination, poverty, and loss, he never grew bitter, only better. He passed away in 1982, leaving behind a legacy not measured in wealth or fame, but in the countless lives saved because one man refused to stop creating. Otis Boykin's story is a symphony of science and humanity, proof that true genius doesn't shout. It hums quietly, steadily, like the beat of a heart it helps sustain. His life reminds us that sometimes the greatest heroes aren't those who fight on battlefields or stand in the spotlight, but those who sit alone in small workshops, soldering wires with trembling hands and unwavering hope, because what he built was more than an invention. It was a bridge between love and legacy, between the human spirit and the machine that keeps it alive. And so, the next time a heart beats because of a pacemaker, remember, behind that rhythm is a story. The story of a boy from Texas who turned loss into light, sorrow into circuitry, and love into a living pulse that the world will never forget.